Live television is unpredictable. There's no script that can save you when things fall apart in real time. In this video, we're diving into 5 real moments where live broadcasts turned into disasters. Not because of accidents, but because of decisions so bad, they almost don't seem real. From reporters caught off guard to events that should have never happened, these are the dumbest moments in live television history, and they all happened in front of millions. It was July 12, 2013, in San Francisco, California. Just 6 days earlier, Asiana Airlines Flight 214 had crash-landed at the city's international airport. 3 people lost their lives, and over 180 others were seriously hurt. The crash was widely covered and had deeply affected the aviation industry and the public. KTVU, a well-known news station in nearby Oakland, had been closely following the story. That Friday afternoon, viewers tuned in for updates. Anchor Tori Campbell took her usual place on set and began reporting. Then, shortly after noon, she read what was described as a breaking update, new information about the pilots aboard the flight. She read 4 names: Captain Sum Ting Wong, Wee Tu Lo, Ho Li Fook, and Bang Ding Ao. The names were shown on screen along with footage of the crash site. No one stopped the broadcast. It aired live and unedited. The names were fake. They weren't Korean. In fact, they were clearly meant to sound like inappropriate phrases when spoken aloud. Within minutes, the video spread online. Viewers were shocked and angry. Many couldn't believe a respected news station would report such names. Inside KTVU, producer Brad Belstock saw it happen in real time. He had worked there for 7 years. Right after the segment aired, he tweeted, "Oh, sh." The tweet and his entire account were quickly deleted. The backlash was immediate. People wanted answers. How did something so offensive make it on air? Later that day, Tori Campbell returned to apologize. She said KTVU had confirmed the names with the National Transportation Safety Board, or NTSB, but that raised even more concerns. The National Transportation Safety Board doesn't usually release names like that. That night, the National Transportation Safety Board responded. They admitted that an intern had confirmed the names without permission. The agency apologized and called the names inaccurate and offensive, but KTVU also had to take responsibility. Anchor Frank Somerville explained that the newsroom never read the names aloud beforehand. They had rushed to air without double-checking the source or the content. The names reportedly came by email from someone the station had trusted before. Still, no one noticed how clearly fake they were. No one stopped to ask if the email was real. The Asian American Journalists Association strongly condemned the broadcast. In their statement, they pointed out how serious the mistake was, especially in a city where over 1/3 of residents are of Asian descent. They also supported Tori Campbell, saying she had likely been caught off guard by the mistake. KTVU's general manager, Tom Raponi, later issued a public apology. He said the station was reviewing its internal process and promised changes, but the public was still angry. Not long after, 3 producers were let go: Roland DeWolk, Christina Gastelum, and Brad Belstock. A 4th producer resigned for health reasons. KTVU tried to remove the clip from YouTube, claiming it was to protect the community, but it had already gone viral. Internationally, the clip drew attention. Asiana Airlines even considered legal action, though they eventually dropped the case. Just days earlier, KTVU's news director had praised the station for its crash coverage, calling it error-free and professional. That claim quickly fell apart. Experts noted the names didn't sound Korean or even like real names. Many believed they were created to mock East Asians. People compared the moment to a comedy movie, but this wasn't fiction. It was a real event involving real loss. The National Transportation Safety Board later confirmed the intern had acted without permission and was dismissed. They also made it clear that the names had not come from them, but from the media outlet itself. Inside KTVU, staff admitted feeling overwhelmed and under pressure to report quickly. Some said this was less about one person and more about a newsroom under stress. For KTVU, this became a turning point, one mistake that seriously damaged its reputation and left a lasting impression on the public. It was December 10, 2013, in Johannesburg, South Africa. Tens of thousands gathered at First National Bank Stadium to honor Nelson Mandela. The event was broadcast to millions around the world, featuring speeches by global leaders, including United States President Barack Obama. But for many in the deaf community, the moment was overshadowed by confusion. Standing beside these leaders was a man meant to interpret the speeches into South African Sign Language. But almost immediately, deaf viewers realized something was wrong. His hand movements didn't make sense. There was no structure, grammar, or meaning behind them. He wasn't using South African Sign Language, or any known sign language at all. He was pretending. Deaf communities worldwide quickly spoke out. His gestures were random and repetitive, with no matching facial expressions. Some said it looked like he was just waving his arms without purpose. Bruno Drucken from the Deaf Federation of South Africa was among the first to raise concerns, saying that there was no meaning in what the man used his hands for. Interpreter Nicole Dutoit called it an absolute circus. Bram Jordan from the World Federation of the Deaf Youth Section described the act as humiliating and made up. Sheena Walters, representing the World Association of Sign Language Interpreters, confirmed that the man didn't use any recognized sign system. He ignored basic grammar and made no attempt to follow the tone of the speeches. Across the world, deaf viewers were shocked. This wasn't a small mistake. It was an international event, and he stood just feet from global leaders. Even more alarming was that he had been cleared by security. The man was on the same stage as President Obama, among others. So, how did someone with no credentials end up there? It turned out this wasn't the first time he'd done this. Months earlier, he had appeared beside President Jacob Zuma at an African National Congress or ANC event, again pretending to interpret. Delphine Hlungwan, a certified interpreter, reviewed his performance and said it was completely inaccurate. During the Mandela Memorial, when the crowd booed Zuma, the man didn't react, another sign that he wasn't following anything. Wilma Nieuwhout Drucken, the first deaf woman in South Africa's parliament, tweeted in real time, saying the man was signing rubbish, but he stayed on stage for hours. Eventually, the man came forward. His name was Thamsanqa Jantjié. He told CNN he was a trained interpreter and had done the job for years, but professional interpreters strongly disagreed. Johan Blau from the South African Translators Institute said complaints had already been made about Jantjie's work at previous events. Nothing had changed. Jantjie later said he had a mental health episode during the memorial. He claimed to have a condition that was usually under control, but on that day, things went wrong. He said that he saw angels coming to the stadium. He also mentioned being too afraid to stop because of the armed security around him. South Africa's Deputy Minister for Women, Children, and People with Disabilities, Hendrietta Bogopane Zulu, addressed the issue in a press conference. She admitted there were mistakes, but insisted Jantjié wasn't a fake. She blamed the lack of a standardized national sign language, but experts said his gestures had no connection to any dialect. They were made up. The company Jantjié claimed to work for, SA Interpreters, couldn't be reached. Officials said the owners had vanished. Jantjié refused to give details about his qualifications, only saying they were with that company. The African National Congress distanced itself from the issue, saying it wasn't their event. But the video showed Jantjié interpreting at a previous African National Congress conference. The national broadcaster, South African Broadcasting Corporation, said it had nothing to do with him either. Outrage from the deaf community continued. Bram Jordan said what happened would always be connected to Mandela's memory, but in the worst way. Interpreter Francois Dezel said the man had mocked the profession. What should have been a moment of unity turned into a global embarrassment. Jantjié called it a dream come true, but for many, it became one of the most confusing moments ever broadcast. An investigation was promised, but no full answers ever came. It was December 20th, 2015, in Las Vegas, Nevada. The Miss Universe pageant had reached its final moments, with millions watching around the world. After months of preparation, the last three contestants, Miss USA, Miss Colombia, and Miss Philippines, stood on stage, waiting for the winner to be announced. What happened next would be remembered as one of the most shocking live television moments in history. Miss Colombia, Ariadna Gutierrez, was announced as the winner. A crown worth $30,000 was placed on her head. She smiled, waved, and blew kisses as the audience cheered. Colombia had just won Miss Universe for the second year in a row, but her victory lasted only 2 minutes. Host Steve Harvey returned to the stage, clearly uncomfortable. The crowd grew silent. He apologized and announced that the first runner-up was Colombia. Miss Philippines, Pia Wurtzbach, stood frozen, confused. Miss USA leaned in and whispered to her, and that's when she realized the truth. Harvey continued, announcing that Miss Universe 2015 was Miss Philippines. Everything had already happened. Confetti, applause, the crowning, but it was all wrong. Pia walked forward slowly while Ariadna remained still. Then, Miss Universe 2014, also from Colombia, removed the crown from Ariadna's head and placed it on Pia's. The show ended abruptly with no closing credits or celebration. The error had aired live in more than 190 countries. Harvey, visibly upset, showed the results card to the camera. He took full responsibility, saying the mistake was his. Some viewers later pointed out that the card's layout was unclear, but ultimately, the mistake was his alone. After the broadcast, Harvey tweeted an apology, but misspelled both country names. He wrote Miss Philippines and Miss Colombia. The tweet was quickly deleted and replaced with a corrected version. In follow-up messages, he expressed regret and said he never meant to take away from the contestants' achievements. Online, reactions were mixed. Some mocked him, and memes spread quickly. One showed his face on Justin Bieber's body with the caption, "Is it too late now to say sorry?" Bieber himself reposted it, saying it was funny but not meant as disrespect. Others supported Harvey. Singer Harry Styles tweeted that people should stop sending hate and acknowledge that he had owned up to his mistake. Former National Basketball Association star Magic Johnson added that everyone makes mistakes and encouraged Harvey to stay strong. Columnist Charles Blow reminded others not to judge too harshly, noting that anyone could make such a mistake. Still, many considered it the worst mix-up in live television award history. Some speculated it might have been a stunt to boost ratings. Television reporter Joe Adalian even said it wouldn't surprise him if it were planned. Donald Trump, who had sold the Miss Universe pageant 6 months earlier, commented as well. He said the mistake wouldn't have happened under his management and criticized the new owners, despite having supported them earlier that night. The next day, the Miss Universe organization released a statement, calling the mistake an unfortunate result of live broadcasting, and apologized to everyone involved. Backstage, Ariadne gave a short emotional comment, saying she believed everything happened for a reason. Pia, now the official winner, said it had been a very unusual crowning moment. Pia had worked hard to reach that stage. She had joined the Miss Philippines pageant 3 times before finally winning. But even in victory, she didn't get the moment most winners dream of. No music, no celebration, just silence and confusion. The 2015 pageant had already been unique. For the first time, audience votes were combined with judge scores. Contestants also judged each other after spending 3 weeks together. The national costume show featured bold fashion and statements like Miss France honoring victims of recent attacks and Miss Japan speaking out against bullying. As the top 15, then top 10, were announced, the pageant moved through the swimsuit and evening gown segments, ending with a Q&A round. Finally, the last 3 stood on stage, waiting. And then, a mistake changed everything. Ariadne lost her moment. Pia's victory was clouded. Steve Harvey's reputation was shaken. And though many apologies were made, the damage had already been done. Live for the world to see. It was February 1998 at Radio City Music Hall in New York City. The Grammy Awards were underway, featuring big names like Bob Dylan, Erykah Badu, Fiona Apple, Tool, and Radiohead. Dylan was on stage performing Love Sick, a slow blues track from his album Time Out of Mind. Everything was calm, until something completely unexpected happened. Just 2.5 minutes into the song, a shirtless man suddenly appeared next to Dylan. He flailed his arms and moved strangely like he was in a trance. Painted across his chest were 2 bold words, soy b. He didn't say anything, he just kept dancing inches away from Dylan, who looked irritated but kept singing. He even asked his guitarist who the guy was. The cameras stayed on. Nobody stepped in. Around 25 million people were watching live, not understanding what was going on. The man was Michael Portnoy, a 26-year-old performance artist from New York. He wasn't a fan who snuck in. He was actually hired by Dylan's team. Portnoy was one of several extras paid $200 to stand behind Dylan and give him a good vibe. The extras were even tested on how well they could move out of sync with the music. Portnoy followed the rules during rehearsals, but when the live show came, he decided to do something else. He later said he couldn't stand on that stage without making a statement. Portnoy didn't care about the music. He saw the moment as a chance to perform. Earlier that day, he chose the words soy for his chest. Soy, meaning life, representing sudden energy. To him, it stood for art that was powerful and unpredictable. His friend, artist Marianne Vitale, painted the phrase on him. He wore a shirt barely glued together so he could rip it off easily. At the planned moment, Portnoy stepped forward, took off his shirt, and danced next to Dylan. The band kept playing. Backstage, people were unsure if it was part of the act. That delay gave Portnoy about 35 seconds on stage. Eventually, someone realized it wasn't planned. A man grabbed Portnoy and carried him off stage while Dylan continued performing. Security brought him backstage and calmly led him out into the cold February night. Shirtless, Portnoy stood on 50th Street until some police officers gave him a white sheet and helped him get to the subway. The next day, He returned to collect his things but never got the $200. He didn't mind. He felt he had already gotten what he came for. The Grammys didn't press charges, but a casting director tried unsuccessfully to get him banned from the Screen Actors Guild. The moment went viral. Late-night shows like The Tonight Show and Saturday Night Live parodied him. In 2005, the band Eels released a song called Whatever Happened to Soy, and in 2016, Broad City spoofed the incident. Portnoy later said the whole act was a protest against how polished and predictable the art world had become. He wanted to interrupt that, and in a way, he did. That short, chaotic moment is still remembered as one of the most bizarre things to happen at the Grammys. Portnoy continued as a performance artist, creating unusual works in Europe and Asia. His shows included The Roaster, which critiqued major exhibits, and Character Assassination, a satire judging people based on online posts. In 2020, he released Progressive Touch, blending dance, experimental music, and adult themes. Soy remains a pop culture reference, even appearing in conspiracy theories. Portnoy claimed his photo was spotted in The X-Files and that billionaire Richard Branson once paid him for a similar stunt at a record label event. As for Bob Dylan, he never spoke publicly about the incident. At the Bob Dylan Center in Tulsa, the performance of Lovesick is on display, but the soy bomb moment has been edited out. Officially, it never happened, but anyone who saw it live remembers otherwise. It was December 6, 2023, in London, England. Mariam Moshiri, a 46-year-old veteran BBC presenter, was about to deliver the midday news. She had spent over 20 years with the network, known for covering major events and interviewing high-profile business leaders. On this particular day, she sat in the BBC's London studio, unaware that a small off-camera moment would soon become one of the most talked-about clips of the year. As the familiar BBC News countdown music played, the control room director counted down from 10 to 0. Mariam, joking with the team behind the scenes, mimicked the countdown by lowering her fingers one by one. But when she reached 1, she used her middle finger, meant as a harmless joke among colleagues. Just then, the live feed began. Viewers around the world briefly saw Mariam raise her eyebrows and flash the middle finger directly at the camera. She quickly realized the mistake, dropped her hand, and switched to a professional tone, beginning the segment with, "Live from London, this is BBC News." She then covered a story about Boris Johnson's appearance at the COVID inquiry. Though Mariam delivered the rest of the broadcast without issue, the brief slip at the start was recorded and quickly spread online. Many viewers assumed the gesture was intentional. Some speculated it was aimed at someone behind the scenes, while others believed it was directed at the audience. But according to Mariam, it was simply a misunderstanding. The next morning, she apologized on X, formerly Twitter, explaining the countdown was a joke and not meant to be broadcast. She clarified it wasn't intended to offend anyone, adding a facepalm emoji. The post quickly garnered over 2 million views. Reactions were mixed. Some criticized her behavior as unprofessional, while others defended it as a mistake. One viewer joked that, as a BBC license payer, they wanted more of that behavior. The BBC had seen other live television blunders before. In 2010, weatherman Thomas Schaffernacher accidentally raised his middle finger in response to a joke, thinking he was off camera. When he realized he was live, he awkwardly scratched his chin to cover it up. That moment later became a favorite among viewers. In 2006, a man named Guy Goma showed up for a job interview and was mistaken for a tech expert. He was brought on air to discuss a legal case, answered questions as best he could, and became a viral sensation. And in 2016, BBC Breakfast mistakenly aired footage of a guerrilla escape while introducing politician Nicola Sturgeon. Mariam's career had been long and respected. She became a chief presenter in early 2023, having previously spent over 15 years as a business reporter. She had interviewed major chief executive officers like Jeff Bezos and was known for staying calm on air. Once, when a graphic of the moon failed to appear, she used her hands to create a moon shape instead, earning praise from viewers. At the time of the incident, the BBC was under financial strain. The network aimed to save £500 million and had already shut down some channels and reduced others. Newsnight was being cut to 30 minutes, and half its staff were being let go. The corporation described it as a difficult period. The clip of Mariam's gesture even got used in political memes. The United Kingdom's Conservative Party posted the video, using it to mock the Labour Party's immigration policies. The post was criticized even by their own members. Inside the BBC, questions were raised about how the clip was leaked. A producer revealed it had been stored in the BBC's internal system and likely shared by someone who accessed it from within. That system records who downloads each clip, hinting that the person responsible could be identified. The BBC did not make further public comments, and Mariam's apology remained the only official response. The video continued to circulate, appearing on global news sites and even Australian television. What started as a light-hearted joke off camera ended up reaching millions. On live television, just 1 second can change everything.